History is filled with battles between empires, armies, and revolutions. But sometimes, the greatest stand of all comes from one man, armed not with power or wealth, but with courage. Tonight, we tell the tale of Alejo Garza Tamez, the 77-year-old rancher who defied the Mexican cartels and whose last night on earth became legend. Subscribe to Bulletproof Tales. Alejo Garza Tamez was born in 1933 in Nuevo León, Mexico. He grew up during a time of great change, when rural life was still hard, but deeply connected to the land. From a young age, Alejo worked with his hands. He was not a soldier, not a criminal, not a politician. He was a worker. Over decades, he built a modest life for himself and his family. He ran a lumber business, later buying a ranch in Tamaulipas, a place where he could raise cattle, hunt, and enjoy the peace of open skies. To his community, Alejo was known as honest, generous, and fiercely independent. He was old-fashioned in the best way, a man of dignity who believed in hard work and protecting what was his. But in Mexico, the 2000s brought a storm that few could escape. By 2010, Tamaulipas had become a battlefield. Rival cartels, the Gulf Cartel and Los Zetas, fought for control of the state, leaving ordinary families caught in the crossfire. Extortion was routine. Farmers, shopkeepers, and ranchers were forced to pay protection fees. Entire properties were stolen. Those who resisted vanished. For many, the choice was simple: obey or die. But Alejo Garza Tamez had lived too long, built too much, and loved his land too deeply to surrender. In November 2010, the message came. A group of cartel gunmen approached Alejo with a demand: leave his ranch within 24 hours or face death. It wasn't a request. It was an ultimatum backed by dozens of armed killers. But Alejo's answer was silence. He didn't run. He didn't call the police. Because in Tamaulipas, even the police were often corrupt or powerless. Instead, he sent his workers away, quietly sparing them from the storm he knew was coming. Then he prepared his home for war. That night, Alejo transformed his ranch into a fortress. He barricaded doors and windows. He placed hunting rifles and shotguns at firing points throughout the house. Ammunition was stacked and ready. Every room, every angle, every approach, Alejo had mapped it out. This was no desperate last act. It was strategy. Imagine him, 77 years old, working through the night in silence, knowing exactly what awaited him. Not a fool rushing toward death, but a man making peace with it. When dawn came, he was ready. The cartels struck in the early hours of November 14th, 2010. Dozens of armed men rolled onto the ranch in trucks, weapons bristling. They expected to find an old man's abandoned property. Instead, they found Alejo waiting. The first wave of gunmen moved toward the house. Then the windows flashed. Shot after shot rang out, echoing across the fields. Gunmen fell. Chaos erupted. Alejo fought like a soldier, though he had never worn a uniform. Every corner of the ranch became a kill zone. A window cracked open with shotgun fire. A doorway thundered with rifle shots. 4 cartel gunmen were killed on the spot. Several more were wounded. The rest scrambled for cover, stunned by the resistance. They expected fear. They expected surrender. Instead, they found themselves in a war against one man who refused to yield. For nearly an hour, the ranch echoed with gunfire. The walls trembled. Dust and smoke filled the air. But still, Alejo fought. Finally, silence fell. The house was torn by bullets, its walls shredded. But Alejo had given everything. When the authorities later entered, they found him inside, lifeless, still holding his weapon. The cartel had taken the land in theory, but in truth, they had lost something greater, their aura of invincibility. Word of Alejo Garza Tamez's stand spread quickly across Mexico. People whispered his name in admiration. In a land scarred by fear, his defiance became a symbol of courage. He hadn't saved the ranch. He hadn't destroyed the cartel. But in choosing to stand, Alejo proved a truth far more powerful: that dignity cannot be extorted. Today, Alejo is remembered as El Señor de los Cielos de Tamaulipas, the man who fought the cartels alone. Songs were written about him, stories told of his valor. He was not a revolutionary. He was not a rebel leader. He was simply a man who refused to surrender his home, even at the cost of his life. Alejo Garza Tamez did not see himself as a hero, but heroes rarely do. In his final moments, he showed the world that resistance is possible, even in the face of impossible odds. He showed that courage is not measured in victories, but in refusing to kneel. And that is why, even in death, Alejo's stand will never be forgotten. Because ideas and courage are bulletproof.